Hey kiddos, today we are going to move on to a different form, which is vertex form. I know you're probably thinking, OMG, there are so many of these forms. But don't worry, when you guys take a quiz or a test on this, which is coming soon, I will write all the different forms down. I won't say which ones are which, because that would make it all too easy for you. But I'll at least write them down and you'll just have to know which ones are which to use. So let's jump right on in. All right, so vertex form is f of x, which remember is interchangeable with y, equals a times x minus h squared plus k, where the vertex is your point known as hk, okay? And the equation for your axis of symmetry is x equals h. And to figure out what the y-intercept is, all you have to do is let x equal 0 and then solve. So let's try a few examples. All right, example 1. F of x equals 3 times x minus 2 squared plus 5. This is pretty straightforward. It's already written in vertex form, and from this form, we're going to be able to figure out these three things: what the vertex is, what the y-intercept is, and what's the axis of symmetry. So, try to give you a little help here. The vertex, remember, is hk. The y-intercept is where we're going to make x equal to 0, and then we're going to solve. The axis of symmetry is x equals h. It's an actual equation. So, let's start off with the vertex. And notice what I did to help me is I rewrote it here with, and mind you, I just realized this was be a 5. So I rewrote it here along with the original formula or form of vertex, okay? That way it helps me match everything up perfectly. So my vertex is H and K. H here is going to be 2, comma. K is 5. All right, I'm going to skip the y-intercept for now because the axis of symmetry is a lot easier. It's just x equals h, and we already know that h is 2, so it's x equals 2. All right, now to find the y-intercept, we do have to do a little bit more work. So we're going to make x equal 0. So in this, all we're doing is changing that x to a 0 and then solving, because we should remember that f of x is the same thing as y. So if I plug in 0 here, we have 3 times 0 minus 2 squared plus 5. Order of operations, please don't forget it. 0 minus 2 is negative 2 squared plus 5. 3 times negative 2 squared, well, remember, negative times a negative is going to make it a positive. I just wrote that out of habit. Positive 2 squared 4 plus 5. 3 times 4 is 12 plus 5. 12 plus 5 is 17. So our our y-intercept is 0, 17. All right, let's try another. Same type of problem, okay? So we're given this quadratic in vertex form, okay? We're going to look for the vertex, y-intercept, and the axis of symmetry. Notice I went ahead and rewrote vertex form in its original state. And then underneath it, I wrote our breakdown here, okay? So let's plug in what we know. Vertex. Okay, H is here. Now be careful because originally it's supposed to be negative. Here this turned into a positive, so that tells me that my H is actually going to be a negative 4. And then K, same concept here. See, originally in the formula it's positive. Here it's negative, so that means, tells me something happened here, so it is a negative 6. All right, so we get negative 4, negative 6 for the vertex. Axis of symmetry is the next easiest thing because we already know what h is. So the axis of symmetry is just simply x equals -4. That's h, by the way. So to find the y-intercept, we have to plug in the value of, yes, that's right, 0 for x. So we have -2 times 0 plus 4 squared minus 6, right? We get -2. 0 plus 4 is 4 squared minus 6. We get, remember, order of operations, got to do the exponents. So -2 times 4 squared, 4 times 4, 16 minus 6. And when we do -2 times 16 and then take away 6, we should end up with -38. So we can write our answer as 0, -38. All right, next. All right, example 3. Obviously, we're going a little bit more complex here. We are now going to write the equation of a quadratic function with, okay, f of -1, sorry, equals -7 and has a maximum value of f of 2 equal to -1. So, very important for you guys to recall and remember that a maximum or a minimum is essentially where the vertex is, okay? And this is a random point that they have given us. So I'm going to break that down. Notice I did here. And I just translated into f of x equals y because we know that f of x is actually the same thing as y. So that's why I write that here. And you can easily see what matches up here. So our point that's given to us is that x is -1 and the y value is -7. And notice the second one, I do the exact same thing, but I know that this point is actually far more special because it's a maximum value, which means it's my vertex. So that's why I don't use the xy here. I use actually hk since I'm wanting to put this in vertex form. So what you can see here is that the x matches up with a 2, and x is the same thing as h. So that's 2, comma, the -1 matches up with that y, which is the same thing as k, -1. All right, so from here, now that we have these 2 points, the vertex and a point, we can now plug this into our vertex form and solve. So we get y equals a, which is what we're solving for. X, we know, is -1 minus h, which is 2, squared plus k, which is -1, and we actually know y is -7. All right, so let's just break this down. We get -7 equals a times -1 minus 2, -3 squared plus a -1. -7 equals a times -3 squared, -3 times -3, +9. I can just put -1. And we get -7 equals 9a, because a times 9 is 9a, minus 1. Solving for a here, so I'm going to add 1 to both sides. We get -6 equals 9a. Last step there is to divide both sides by 9, and we end up with a equals -6 divided by 9 reduces to -2/3. So when we rewrite the equation in vertex form, we have f of x equal a, which is the -2/3, times x minus 2 squared minus 1. So this would be our equation in vertex form. Well, you already know you only live once, so oh yo, haha, on your own. Get it? Got it? Good. So you're going to write the equation of a quadratic function in vertex form with a minimum point of f of 3 equals -5 and a random point of f of 1 equals 2. So this is exactly like the previous problem. Make sure that you remember the minimum point here, that is your vertex. This is your random point. So that's your xy. This is your hk. All right, next. All right, example 5. Write the equation of a quadratic function in vertex form with, this time, zeros at -1 and 3 and a maximum value of 8. All right, so there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle here. So notice zeros, just to recall, is the same thing as the word roots, which is the same thing as x-intercepts. So we have two of them, and I've rewritten them as points, -1, 0, and 3, 0, okay, because that's what our x-intercepts are. They also give us the maximum value, which is our vertex. And we know the maximum value is 8, meaning that that's the highest it goes. So that's going to be the y value that we know. We have no clue what the x value is yet. But there's something special about a maximum. Uh, it's actually where the axis of symmetry would be. So therefore, it has to be in the middle, or I should say, in between my two x-intercepts, which is given to me. So we can actually figure out what that vertex is by, let's see, we go to hop once, hop twice that direction, hop one, hop twice, and the middle is here, which is at a +1. So we actually know that our vertex is 1, 8. Okay, so to write this out, we need 1 point. Luckily for us, we're given 2. So you can pick your poison, essentially, whichever point uh, you want to make this work with. And let's just say I'm going to pick the first point, -1, 0. HK, which we know is our vertex, is 1, 8. Now that we know that, we can now figure out what our A value is to be able to write our final answer in vertex form. So y, 0, equals A, which is what we're solving for, times x, -1, minus h, which is 1, squared, plus k, which is 8. All right, let's break this down. 0 equals A times -1 minus 1 gives me -2 squared plus 8. All right, that is 0 equals -2 squared that's going to give me 4. So 8 times 4 plus 8. Well, that's really just 0 equals 4a plus 8. According to how to solve for a variable, I'm going to subtract 8 to both sides. I'll write it over here. You get -8. 0 minus 8 is -8 equals 4a. Last step, you got it. Divide by 4. And -8 divided by 4 leaves me with -2 as my a value. Now remember, that's not being completely finished because now we just have to plug it into our um, vertex form to have the final answer, which is going to be f of x equals a -2 times x minus 1 squared plus 8. That would be our final answer for the equation written in vertex form. All right, awesome sauce.